Hey, in this assignment, we're going to look at a couple different terms dealing with statistics, particularly if I'm given a set of data. And I'm going to do two examples, and then I have two examples for you to do, so it's not going to be a very lengthy homework assignment. But I do want us to apply A, B, C, D, and E to each data set. And I'm going to go through these and explain these as I go through them, but I will read the definitions really quick. So the mean is essentially the average. To find the average, we're going to add up all the values and then divide by the number of values we have. Median is the middle value, but it's not the middle value of the data set as it's presented. We have to rearrange it first in order either from smallest to greatest or greatest to smallest before we can find that middle value. The mode is the value that occurs the most often in the data set. Sometimes we'll have two values that occur the same amount of times, and if that's the case, the mode would be both those values, or sometimes it could be three or four values that occur the same amount of time, and that could be our mode. So it's not only always one value. The range is going to be the difference between the lowest and the highest values. To calculate the range, we simply take the largest value, subtract the smallest value. And then the five number summary, we have these five numbers. The min is exactly what it says it is. It's the smallest value. The max is the highest value of the data set. And then we have quartile 1, quartile 2, and quartile 3, and I'll explain that as we get a little bit further, but I do want to say quartile 2 is also the median. So then we are just left with quartile 1 and quartile 3 as the new terms. Okay, so let's look at this first data set. When you're given a data set, the most important thing is that you rearrange it. So that's what I suggest that all my students do. Rearrange it. I prefer to go from least to greatest, but you could go from greatest to least, but I'm going to do least to greatest. All right, so I have 5, 7, and I don't always get them right the first time, so I'm okay to erase values if I make a mistake, but 5, 7, 9, 10, 13, 13, 14, 14, 14, and then 15, and then 19. So as you see, when I rearranged it, I put a mark through the value as I rearranged it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and count. And I need to count these anyway to figure out how many values I have. But I'm going to go back and count the original data set and my data set to make sure that I have the same amount of values. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 11 values in the original data set. And then if I count mine, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 11 values. So that's just something to double check. As an instructor, the most common mistake I see students make in this whole assignment is going to be not rewriting the values or not rewriting all the values or maybe duplicating a value. So your first step is to rewrite the values in order. I choose to go from least to greatest and just double check and make sure you have all those values there. Okay, so the mean is really the only one that we didn't have to rearrange these values for, but I always do that first anyway. So the mean, what we're essentially going to do is we're going to add up all of these. So I'm going to do these off to the side and not show you this, but I'm going to add 5 plus 7 plus 9 plus 10 plus 13 plus 13 plus 14 plus 14 plus 14 plus 15 plus 19. I press enter, and when I add all those up, if I added all those up, I get 133. When you add up all values, I got 133. And now I need to divide that by the number of values I had. Well, I had 11 values, so I'm going to divide that by 11. So 133 divided by 11 is going to be 12.09090909. And just for the sake of this assignment, and I didn't explain this in the instructions, but for the sake of this assignment, I'm going to round this to 2 decimal places. So I have this as 12.09 would be my mean when I round to 2 decimal places. Okay, so like I said, the mean I did not necessarily have to order in order from least to greatest, but for the rest of them, I kind of need to. So the next one's going to be the median. We said the median is going to be the middle value. So the middle value is going to be calculated a little bit differently when I have a odd number of values, and in this case I have 11. I'm going to have a single term in the middle. But if I had an even number of values, I would have two terms in the middle. And the next example I'm going to do, I'm going to have an even number. So I'll show you that route. But when I have a odd number of values, I simply am going to count from the left and the right until I get to the middle. So what I mean by that is I'm going to kind of do a strike through. So let's see if I can choose a different color. All right, so I'm going to strike off one from the left side and the right side. And then another one from the left, another one from the right. Another one from the left, another one from the right, another one from the left, one from the right, one from the left, one from the right. And you'll see I have this value in the middle. If I want to double check myself, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values on the left side, and I have 5 values on the right side. So I confirm that I've taken away 5 values from the left, 5 values from the right. So the number in the middle is 13. All right, so I'm going to try to erase some of this without causing too much trouble. Okay, so now the mode is going to be the value that shows up the most. So I see that I have 13 shows up twice, but 13 doesn't show up the most. So even though it shows up twice, that's not necessarily going to make it a mode. It's which one shows up the most, and the value that I see I have the most is 14. So my mode is just simply which value shows up the most. Now let's say I had 3 13s and 3 14s. Then my mode would be 13 and 14. All right, so I would have both values there. But in this case, I only have 3 14s. That shows up more than any other value, so that's going to be my mode. The range, I calculate the range by taking the largest value and subtracting the smallest value. And this is essentially the max minus the min. Right, so my largest value in this case, and I've already rearranged it so it makes it really easy to find, is going to be 19. My smallest value is 5, so my range is going to be 14. Okay, so the 5-number summary, we have to remember what it was. It was min, it was quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, and then the max. Well, the range, we already had the min and the max, and we can go back up here. The min was 5, the max was 19, so I'm going to go ahead and fill those in. So that's really easy to calculate. Q2 represents the middle of my data set, right? Well, we have already found the middle of my data set. That was the median. So Q2 is going to be 13. So now, how do we calculate Q1 and Q3? These are going to be new values. The other ones were essentially already applied to us. So to calculate Q1, what we're looking for is if we take the data set to the right, I'm sorry, I used my wrong word. If we take the data set to the left of the median, right? Median was this 13 here, right? This was my median. If I take the data set to the left of the median, I have 5, 7, 9, 10, and 13. Q1 is actually going to be the value in the middle of this new data set, or the data set that's to the left of the median. So if I do the same process that I did a while ago, strike one off from the left, one from the right, one from the left, one from the right, I'll see that 9 is actually in the middle of this smaller subgroup of a data set. So it's the median to the left of the median, if that makes sense. So my Q1 value is 9. Q3, I would take the data set to the right of the median, which would be 14, 14, 14, 15, and 19. And I want to find the value in the middle of this data set, which would be that 14 right there. So my Q3 is 14. And that's how I would come up with my 5-number summary. Okay, so I just did data set 1. Data set 2 is very similar to data set 1. And the way I say it's very similar is if you count the values here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have an odd number of entries into my data set. And that was very similar to my example here where I had 11 values, which was also an odd number. When we have an even number, as I'm going to do in data set 3, there are some minor changes that we're going to make. The terms that we use, mean, median, mode, range, and 5-number summary, are still all going to be the same. But the way we calculate this median and maybe some of those Q1s, Q2s, and Q3s here with the 5-number summary do have a small change in them. Okay, so let's first always rearrange. So I'm going to start with the smallest. And I don't always get this right the first time. So if I make a mistake, I'll erase and just try to squeeze in a number. But I have 18. I have 19. I see 20. And then 21. I see a 22. I have a 24. I have another 24. 26. I have a 28. Another 28. 29. And then a 34. And then a 40. Okay, so once again, I think that's probably where most of the mistakes come in is copying down that data set and rearranging it. So double check yourself here. Make sure that you take your time with this. I'm going to count. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have 13 values. And I know I said I was going to have an even value here, but you're going to see that even number come up a little bit later. So I have 13 values here, and let me double check and make sure I have the same amount of values in my data set. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 and 13. So I know I have 13 values. So once again, to find the mean, we add them all up. So add all values, and then divide by, in this case, 13. So I'm going to grab my calculator off to the side, and I'm going to add all of these up. 18 plus 19 plus 20 plus 21 plus 22 plus 24. Okay, and I would double check myself, but I have 333. And I'm going to divide that by 13. And I get 25.61538.462. Once again, I'm going to round this to just 2 decimal places, so 25.62 would be my rounded mean. All right, so the median is once again going to be the value in the middle, so I'm going to strike through some of these. Let's grab the blue. So, oops. Sorry. All right, so strike one on the left, then the right, left, then 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 right. And I'll see that this is in the middle. And if I want to double check myself, which I do, I'll say that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 values to the left. And if I count the values to the right, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've gone 6 values from the left, 6 values from the right, and that has left me with 24 in the middle. So I didn't have to do anything with the median there. And now I'm going to go to the mode. So the mode is just simply which one shows up the most. So I see that I have 28 shows up 2 times. So 28 shows up twice. I have 24 that shows up twice. So this time my mode is a tie between 28 and 24. So my mode is going to be 24 and 28. So my mode can be 2 values. The mistake that I'll see here is students will take the average between the 2 values, or if it's 3 values, they'll take the average between the 3 values. We do not want to do that with the mode. We just simply write down the ones that are tied for the most. All right, so I have 24 and 28. They both showed up twice. The range is always the largest value, which is 40, minus the smallest value, which is 18. So I have 40 minus 18. That's going to give me 22, so my range is 22. And I apologize, my stylus, I think the battery's down on it. It's a little bit shaky. All right, so the 5-number summary is going to be a little bit different this time with how we calculate it. And this is what I meant by having a even value. So I have min, I have my max, I have Q1, I have Q2, and I have Q3. All right, so we said that the min is always just going to simply be the min. I'll scroll back to the top. I have 18 was my lowest number. My max was going to be the value over here, which is 40. And Q2 we know was the value in the middle. So the middle value was my median here, 24. Okay, so how do we calculate Q1? What we do is we take out that middle value and we look at the data set just to the left. So just to the left of that median value. And here I see that I have a total of 6 values, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24. That's going to be 6 values. So I need to find the middle of the 6 values. So this would be like me finding the median of this smaller data set. So I would cancel one out from the left, and I'm going to go with a different color here. I'm going to cancel with red. So I cancel one out from the left, cancel one out from the right. Cancel one out from the left, cancel one out from the right. And now you'll see, instead of this leaving me with one number, I'm left with 2 numbers. So anytime you're calculating the medians or your quartile 1, quartile 3, and you have 2 values, what you want to do now is find the average of these values. So if we're ever calculating the median, Q1 or Q3, and we have 2 values that are in the middle essentially, we're going to find the average of those 2 values. So for this one, it's not going to be a hard average to come up with. I'm going to switch back to blue. To find the average of 2 values, you simply add the 2 values together and divide by 2. So this would be 41 divided by 2, which gives me 20.5, which we probably could have did in our head. Between 20 and 21, the average in the middle is 20.5. So my Q1 is 20.5. I need to do the same thing for Q3. So Q3, I'm only looking at the data set to the right of the median. I do not include the median value. And I'll see that I have 6 values again. So since this is even, it's going to provide me 2 numbers in the middle. Cancel one from the left, one from the right, one from the left, one from the right. And you'll see now my 2 values are 28 and 29. I would do the same thing to calculate the median or the average of these two. So it's 28 plus 29 over 2, which gives me 28.5 when I put that in my calculator. So my Q3 is 28.5. So not that it was a different definition for my Q1 and Q3. The definitions stay the same, but the way we would calculate it when we have 2 values in the middle instead of 1 value in the middle did change a little bit. When we have 2 values in the middle for my Q1, Q2, or my Q3, we would simply find the value or find the average between those 2 values. So I did data set 3 and data set 1, so that's going to leave y'all with data set 2 and data set 4 to complete for this assignment.